Justin Fields, little Ramondre Stevenson, Ken Walker, maybe even Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce. What about Kadarius Tony? A lot of options for league winners, both obvious and maybe not so obvious. And that's what we're going to get into today. We're only a few short weeks away from the fantasy playoffs, from the best ball playoffs. Time to start seeing what teams maybe look the best, project the best, have the most upside to win $1 million, $2 million come week 17 of this NFL season. Let's do it. All right, guys. I can't believe we're a month away from the fantasy playoffs, the best ball playoffs, all these guys. Let's talk about the opposite of the league winners first. It's always good to start your show doing the opposite of what you said you were going to do. We're going to talk about league winners, but let's talk about the anti-league winners, the league losers, the injuries. But some of these injuries will probably set up some league winners. The first, so we've obviously already had Trey Lance, we've had Javonte Williams, we've had tons of injuries, but now it's really compounding. And I would say 3 really major injuries basically were announced today. So if you haven't seen, Cooper Kupp has gone on IR with a high ankle sprain. And to quickly talk about that, I do not think there's any league winners coming from this situation. I think this is the end of the Rams for this year. We're getting excited and getting ready for the fantasy playoffs. I think the Rams are getting ready for the offseason, Hawaii vacation or something. I'm not even totally certain that they'll bring Cooper Kupp back. I don't imagine they're going to win any games without him. Stafford is still in concussion protocol. They're a bad team. They're a bad football team. Cooper Kupp teams are probably dead. Maybe he'll come back. We'll see. I wouldn't say Cooper Kupp teams are totally dead, but you're not going to have him for the rest of the regular season. You need him to hopefully come back for the playoffs. They'll be out of the NFL playoff race by then. So Cooper Kupp is an unfortunate situation. And unlike many of these other ones, right, we're not getting... I mean, we could sit here and say, oh, this is good for Allen Robinson or Van Jefferson or Tyler Higbee or whatever. But sure, they'll get a couple extra targets. The offense couldn't score with Cooper Kupp. What are they going to do without Cooper Kupp? It's pretty much over. Play your defenses against the Rams in DFS moving forward, and go pick up the defenses against the Rams in season long and call it a day. It sucks. Cooper Kupp was a smash. We move on. Dallas Goedert. They have not announced exactly how long. I thought it was funny that he got hurt. It did look bad. He grabbed his knee when he got face masked and tackled last night in the game. They announced he is out, a significant amount of time, or will miss quite a bit of time. I forget exactly what the specific wording was on Goddard. That's brutal. Let me pull up a couple things here and we can start walking through some of this stuff. If I go to, and if you haven't seen, we're starting to build out some kind of best ball and fantasy focused stats pages. And this is kind of the very beginning of that. I'm very excited about this little kind of project we've been working on. But if I go here and I take out all these other positions and I look at tight end, and so this is sorted by ADP, but you can sort by any of these, and we've got a whole bunch of stuff here, including spike weeks, mega spike weeks, not mega spike weeks, usable weeks, dud weeks, right? As well as target share, air yards, all that kind of stuff. And so you can compare where guys were drafted. This is totally free right now as well. Go to spikeweek.com, go to NFL, and then go to stats. But you can kind of compare points per game, right? Points added. It's the points they're scoring above an average week at their position. All sorts of different stuff in here. But tight end is where that can be it's powerful at all positions, but think about how low scoring tight end is, right? And so Goddard was being drafted down here at the tight end 7, and on a points per game basis, he was the tight end 4, just recently surpassed by TJ Hawkinson after a couple of good games. TJ Hawkinson had the one huge game, which is really what buoyed this. So like you see, TJ Hawkinson has one mega spike week. Goddard had the one as well, where he scored 27 fantasy points. And I don't need to, we're going to post the definitions of all these on these pages, but we don't need to get down into those nuts and bolts. But so if you drafted Dallas Goedert, right, of course, is he Travis Kelce? You see here 7.5, 7.6 fantasy points per game? No, of course not. But I mean, remember Mark Andrews kind of got dinged up and all that. This is skewing his kind of ish points per game, but it is what it is, right? Dallas Goedert was kind of close enough to Mark Andrews from a points per game perspective. And then when you go over here and we go to, usable weeks, Travis Kelce, a guy who we'll get to in a second, and Dallas Goedert, there's this little bucket above here of guys. Yes, maybe not putting up the total monster performances, which is something we care about a lot and care about in the playoffs, but you're just banking good weeks from Dallas Goedert. Was like a huge piece from where you were able to draft him, especially like if you have him in Eagle stacks. AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are awesome, but Dallas Goedert was a low-key, like, huge winner. Not necessarily like what I would classify as the typical league winner. Some of the guys we'll get to later, but kind of at the tight end position. Like the power of Travis Kelce is not only that he puts up great weeks. I mean, look at this, 8 spike weeks. He's a monster. That's a huge power. That's why he goes in the first round. But also just like not having to worry about the tight end position. Even when he doesn't put up big games, you're like, yep, I'm getting my 10. I'm getting my 10 or 12. And that's good enough at tight end. And you were like sort of getting that from Dallas Goedert. Not quite the same, but I mean, 8 usable weeks out of 10 games. That's all you could ask for. One dud, right? So you see we have a column here for dud weeks. It's hard to sort by the top because this is actually kind of funny when you see Robert Tonyan is 1 spike week and 8 dud weeks. So I guess he's the definition of boom bust. Mike Gesicki, here's a good one. Mike Gesicki, 1 mega spike week, 1 spike week, 3 usable weeks, and a bunch of duds. So maybe it's the kind of guy that we like. But you go look at the 0. Travis Kelce has not had a dud. Hilariously, Quentin Tarantino's son here on here. But at the very top, there's these other guys are kind of sample size issues. Tommy Sweeney and Grant Calcaterra. Outside of Travis Kelce, Dallas Goedert has 1 dud week. It was just a locked in great pick, and clearly had the upside. He had the 127-point game. That's just brutal, and it wipes out another huge critical tight end. Will Goedert be back? Yeah, I assume so. We don't really have a firm answer from the Eagles on exactly when he'll be back, but it's killer because you might lose some of those Goedert teams, right? You were counting on his 7 to 15 points every single week, and now you're getting nothing. Your backup tight end might be. I have like Brevin Jordan backup tight ends who's not even playing. The Alberto and Brevin Jordan coffins in best ball. But anyway, we're here to talk about league winners, and I guess that's an interesting intro into it because Dallas Goedert to me was kind of like a totally under the radar league winner, not the type of league winner we would normally think of. Another one at tight end, I've seen our good friend Mike Leone talk about Zach Ertz, and Zach Ertz was definitely a whiff for me, but in a kind of funny sense. If we sort by usable weeks, Zach Ertz was, he didn't have the ceiling that we saw from Goddard, right? Goddard kind of had 2 more big games, which is more impactful. But again, Ertz was just getting you tight end points. And there is something to be said. Yes, we're all about upside, winning tournaments and all that. There is something to be said for getting my double-digit points every single week and moving on, especially when he was drafted at an ADP over here of 113 in the tight end 10. So he's done for the year. He's out for the year. Should have led with that. Buried the lead a little bit. But Zach Ertz is out for the year. And so we lost three of the most critical tight we've lost two of the most critical tight ends in all of fantasy. David Njoku is hurt. Mark Andrews is hopefully going to be back this week. Tight end is just an absolute barren wasteland. Yeah, as Liam says, shout out Liam. Hard to say fading Ertz in half PPR is a whiff when part of it was to fade an old player and then he gets hurt. 100%. I totally agree. He is a good example of in the Discord today, which if you have not joined the Spike Week Discord, there's a link in the description to join that. Totally free. People hanging out. We're talking all sorts of this sicko stuff 24/7, but it's a lot of fun. I'm a sicko and I enjoy it. I agree with this. I mean, I agree with this take. Ertz is one of those, we get so like ingrained with the results of everything. Every player, right? I got this right or I didn't get this right. And Zach Ertz could be, honestly, if you drafted Zach Ertz, you could say, I was right. I got a lot of valuable results from Zach Ertz, and my thesis was he's going to get the ball. He draws a lot of targets. Nuke is out for the first 6 weeks. Who knows what's going to happen? And there's value in that at the tight end position. And I'm just going to take those points to the bank. And you got that. And I can't really, it's fine. That's fine. But if you faded and you said he's not going to put up big enough weeks, right? As we're looking at the screen here, he's not going to put up enough spike weeks. He's just going to be getting by with usable weeks. I don't care if I don't have him. And he's old, as Liam says. That opens him up to getting hurt or getting benched for a second-round rookie. He ended up getting hurt. So the thesis of that played out too. Both can be true. It's okay. You know what I mean? Like we're always in search of these answers from every situation, and there doesn't have to be like a lesson from Zach Ertz, in my opinion. He got hurt. You could say, look, I'm a genius. I told you he was going to get hurt. Or you could say, look, he got me a usable week every goddamn week of the season, and I drafted him in, at pick 120. That seems fine. So I think it's all. Sorry, I'll make sure and hit some of these everybody's comments. Yeah, Brevin Jordan inactive was, I don't know what's going on. They're I assume that they're trying to lose basically, and we're playing Jordan Akins and not Brevin Jordan. I don't get it. So safe to say Brevin Jordan's not in the league winner discussion. Yeah, what is Isaac? What's the meaning of life? You came to the wrong place. All I care about is fantasy sports and dogs and gambling. And I'm big into Formula One now and true crime documentaries. There's the meaning of life for me. You just got the elevator pitch on the only things that I care: my wife, my dogs, fantasy sports, gambling, Formula One, and binging every true crime documentary ever to come to a streaming service. that's life. Anyway, let me double back here. This is interesting. Timo says Eno claimed by the Texans. I think that's pretty interesting. In the which I'll try to stay on schedule here with a league winner talk. Eno is like a crazy fascinating guy in this whole discussion where we'll get to the Justin Fields and the Ken Walkers and all that of the world. I kind of think the conversation is more fun around league winners, around these types of guys. I keep talking about Kadarius Tony, so I'll try not to talk about him too much. But those types of guys are the league winners that I think are the most interesting, right? Eno might be the most fascinating. The thesis of Eno hits, right? James Conner is made out of pixie dust and rubber bands and chewing gum, double bubble too, so it goes bad really fast. Not even like a long lasting gum. He falls apart immediately. Start of the season. Shocker. Eno comes in, takes that job away from Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams also gets hurt, right? But Eno outperformed everybody else in that backfield. The thesis of the play on Eno hits. He also has some big weeks, one in particular, that are huge for you during the early part of the season. So he's a clear winner just from a few games as a 18th round pick on Underdog. Then, he goes away because Connor comes back. And now he moves on to a new team because they don't agree on who's getting the ball. Eno's probably right. He moves to the Texans, who have been using Rex Burkhead behind Dameon Pierce. Who is to say we come down the stretch here and Eno doesn't pop up again? Right? It's been a roller coaster ride getting to what could be a potential league winner in Eno. But it'd be one thing like if we were just chasing last year's Rashad Penny, which is what we're going to be doing with some of these guys that we'll talk about today. It's what Kadarius Tony is kind of the wide receiver version of last year's Rashad Penny. Doesn't do shit all year. Doesn't even play almost all year. Then comes back into a good situation with, for Tony, he's on the Chiefs and other guys have gotten hurt. For Penny, he was on a good offense too, the Russ-led Seahawks, and now he was the guy, right? This guy who doesn't do anything and then comes in at the end. That's the Rashad Penny. The Eno is this weird, he did stuff early, then disappeared so badly that he gets cut. And then moves into another potentially interesting situation. Now, it's not as interesting as the Cardinals because the Texans just don't score points. I mean, Dameon Pierce has 100 yards every week and is not very good for fantasy because he never gets in the paint because they don't score touchdowns. But, come playoff time, who's to say that doesn't change? So he's really interesting in this lens. Jameson brings up from when we were talking about Cooper Kupp earlier, the Kupp injury might make Higbee a volume guy. That's true. I mean, Higbee was a volume guy after Kupp went down. So you definitely can say like, oh, this is potentially going to raise Higbee's floor because Higbee had kind of gone away for like a month after the crazy start to the season with targets. He pretty much evaporated to dust. Somebody's got to get some targets, even if they're John Wolford targets on a team not scoring any points. So I do think it generally helps Higbee raise his projection every single week, but it tanks the offense and just like how much are you going to get by on Tyler Higbee catching 4-yard passes? You know what I mean? Yeah, get ready for a bunch of Kyron Williams 2-yard runs. Only Blur says, would we rather have injuries in the summer after we drafted or injuries in season on a good team? What hurts more in the summer? I've forgotten. If a guy gets hurt over in the summer, you forget about it by this point. It still stings, but the sting of having the good team that has, the smash team that has Dallas Goedert or Cooper Kupp. My best teams, some of my best teams have Cooper Kupp and Goedert, frankly. But the Kupp one stings really bad because it feels like that's definitely dead. Goedert, you're at least like keeping a light on for. Ertz, if Ertz was on your best teams, you feel that stings to me way worse. Let's see. Yeah, Lundar says the Rams gave up a pick to the Lions, and it's going to end up being in the top 5. That is crazy. Also, my God, yes, this while we're walking through some of these injuries. Another interesting situation. I think either one of these guys could be the league winner. Hollywood comes back. They are in a very interesting situation with the Cardinals where they're definitely still going to be pushing for the playoffs because the Rams are so bad. The 49ers have lost a few games. The Seahawks have lost a few games. So those guys are going to be duking it out. The NFC is terrible. Cardinals are definitely going to be pushing. They have not been able to push the ball down the field at all. Really with Hollywood. But they get Robbie Anderson. He's not even playing. He's useless. AJ Green is out here still getting touches. I think we could get a little bit of Hollywood juice. Rondale, what did he have? Like 14 targets this week or something like that. But it's just all Nuke and Rondale kind of underneath stuff. A little bit more than underneath stuff. But you know what I mean? The archetype of those two players is such that you're just not getting a lot of explosive plays. So you introduce Hollywood into that offense. I'm not sure that they're really going to ever be successful running the ball with James Conner. I think it's reasonable that Hollywood could sneak into this discussion of a guy who was great, kind of like the expensive wide receiver version of Eno. Hollywood was awesome early on, goes away for a month or two, comes back, which now lowers his ownership later in the season, and is on a one of the offenses that hasn't totally crumbled. Now the Cardinals haven't been good, but at least their function. Would you rather have Hollywood or Allen Robinson? That one's pretty easy. You know what I mean? And then Mike Williams is just, I mean, Jesus Christ, the Chargers need somebody to throw the ball to. Absolutely need somebody to throw the ball to. Very interesting year for sure. Let's see here. Yeah, pretty good landing spot. Shout out Matt. Yes, in case you can't see, I'm rocking the UNC hoodie, and my wife and I are going to the SLU. St. Louis University plays Memphis tonight, so we're going to the game. I'm very excited about that. Also, Penny was my favorite player, favorite basketball player as a child growing up and everything. So maybe I'll get down there and try to go dap him up or something after the SLU win tonight. Segueing off of the Ertz injury and off of the nonsense that I'm talking about, Al says, I was drafting a ton of Trey McBride this offseason. Didn't know what he looked like. Didn't know he was a white guy till last weekend. Colorado State tight end, won the Mackey Award. He actually was basically as efficient a receiver in his final year in college as Kyle Pitts was. And Kyle Pitts set the world ablaze, and as a receiver efficiency wise, at Florida in his final year. That's why he was the greatest tight end prospect of all time and went 4th overall. But Trey McBride was a monster at Colorado State. Now, he's not the athlete. He's a okay athlete for an NFL tight end. He's not that level of athlete, obviously, but Trey McBride at a tight end position, if he can just fill in for most of what Zach Ertz was doing, and you're getting that, right? So that the thing about Zach Ertz, like we talked about earlier, is even if you didn't draft him, you probably still don't necessarily feel that bad because he never, again, if we went back to the usable weeks, he was only putting up usable weeks at tight end. And a usable week at tight end is helpful. It's not setting you over the top. But if you can get that, maybe with a little more juice, if you can just get that role, if you put Zach Ertz in the 18th round, yes, God, sign me up. The reason you didn't take him is because you went 113th overall, right? You don't pay that price for that production. But if you get that production in the 18th round at tight end where nobody freaking scores any points, nobody, then that's incredibly valuable. And so I have a good amount of Trey McBride. I shared the wrong screen. 1 second. I can pull up and see here's all my underdog teams. So not sorted by Best Ball Mania. Let me put McBride in and we can see if we can find anything so I have 29 Trey McBride teams. Of course, the best one is in the big board. 17% advance rate. So not amazing, but that's kind of when you're pulling in the advance rate for, granted, he was a last round player. When you're pulling in who has not scored any fantasy points, it's probably not going to be very good. The best team is in the big board. I think I remember I've seen this team. I think it is Trey McBride and Kylan Granson at tight end are my only tight ends. Oh yeah, because it has Blake Jarwin. Shout out to the big board draft. But this team in the big board could really use Trey McBride to become Zach Ertz because it's been getting by. Let me see where it stands. It's in first, and it is up by 129.6 points. And it has had Trey McBride and Kylan Granson at tight end all year. But, Josh Allen and Diggs can solve a lot of problems. Derrick Henry, Leonard Fournette. Don't feel great about having Fournette, but generally, Derrick Henry, Demont, Michael Carter, Lenny, and Miles Sanders. I think that'll do it running back with Diggs. Sutton looking good, although Judy's injury seems to be fine. Kenny Galladay, yikes. Pickens, fun team. Is Van Jeff back? He's playing. He played last week. Played last 2 weeks. Or 3. I don't know. He's running wind sprints. He's pulling a Mac Hollins. That's what we call it. Used to be a Chris Hogan or a Jalen Guyton. Now it's a Mac Hollins. Remember when Mac Hollins had that like 40 fantasy point week? And now he just runs wind sprints, even though Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller are out. God, the Raiders are bad. So I think Trey McBride's a really interesting guy at the tight end position with the Zach Ertz injury. So we talked about Higbee a little bit. Obviously, from a best ball perspective, there's nobody really from the Goddard situation at tight end. Jack Stoll. Is it Jack Stoll? Is that right? Anyway, Stoll will step into more of a role with the Eagles, but I don't think he's going to be able to earn targets like Goddard. So I mean, it hurts the offense because Goddard's really good. So it's a little ding to Jalen Hurts in the short term. And then I do think, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, you should be feeling pretty good about them drawing some more targets. Maybe a smidgy of Quez Calcaterra. Thank you, Ryan. Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra. Calcaterra was a reasonable receiver from Oklahoma to SMU. So he'd probably be the guy I would bet on in as a pass catcher over Stoll. But that's just a total snap take. So let's go through some of those under the radar guys, right? If you have someone that I may miss, please by all means add it in, because I do want to talk about Kadarius Tony a little bit. So I think most people kind of generally agree, but I also think it's a tricky situation because it may appear that some of it was due to injury this past weekend. Like, of course, some of it was due to injury, what he did. But the most interesting thing to me about Kadarius Tony was that he didn't really play that much. I think that's actually part of what people are missing a little bit. If we go and look at Tony, so in his first game with the Chiefs, he played all of 9 snaps. You see here, he played all of nine snaps, and on those he was in there to get the ball. Right, on those 9 snaps, he got two touches, 2 targets. Then we go to the Jags game, and he was out there getting run and getting targeted before. I hate what they did with the video on Pro Football Reference. But so he's getting run early. I mean, he caught the first touchdown pass from Patrick Mahomes. Then Juju goes down with Hardman already down. He didn't actually get like a crazy boost in playing time. As you see here, he played 28 offensive snaps. Who got the crazy boost in playing time was Justin Watson and Sky Moore and Jody Fortson and Noah Gray. So we went to more Noah Gray. We went to all the Justin Watson, which I played Justin Watson in DFS. And of course, 75% of snaps, 0% ownership at 3K. So lame. Wow. My wife just said that we had a delivery and they actually rang the doorbell, which normally sends my dogs into absolute chaos. And they are so tired that they didn't even flinch. My dude is passed out over here. That doesn't happen. So on Tony, I am taking this. Both of these comments, Jameson says both Tony and Claypool not greatly increasing snaps is pretty annoying. I get it. And he still doesn't know the system. I totally get those takes. But all that means is we're sitting on a freaking gold mine. He's better than McCole Hardman. He's better than Sky. He's definitely better than Justin Watson. And they're making a concerted effort to get him the ball, and he's producing. He looked awesome on Sunday in these, 28 snaps. And he put up a great week in those 28 snaps. What happens when he does learn the playbook over these next few weeks, when he does start to get to 60, 70% snaps, right? MVS is going to play the MVS role. Juju will be back, and Tony's going to be out there getting touches. Not Sky, not Justin Watson. It's going to be Tony. All he does is earn targets and earn touches when he's out there. 4 for 57 and 1 plus 2 carries for 33 yards. He was either targeted or, 7 opportunities in 28 snaps. 25% of the time he was on the field, he's getting the rock. And that's pretty valuable on the Chiefs. He doesn't need to play 80% of snaps. Let MVS run block. Let Noah Gray run block. You know what I mean? Who cares if he's out there when Isaiah Pacheco's running the ball? You want him to go run routes and get carries. I think it's only going to keep rising, in my opinion, for Kadarius Tony. Like, unless he plays bad, all he's doing is outperforming these other wide receivers already, not knowing the full system or whatever. I mean, it's just, to me, Kadarius Tony feels like the poster boy for the under the radar league winner to me. You just don't get a dude with a first round pick just a year ago. I know there's people didn't like that he was a first round pick or whatever, but all he did was earn work on the Giants last year, albeit in a small sample, get traded to the best offense in the league who needs wide receiver help. He also fits from a profile perspective, an archetype perspective, exactly what they want. They want to be able to, give him carries. They want to be able to jet sweeps and shovel passes and zone reads and everything with Tony. And he's going to earn work. And as Hugh says, he's good enough with the ball in his hands. Like, they're just going to get it to him a handful of times, and he's going to be dynamite. He's literally called the human joystick. It's his nickname. It's the human joystick because he's unreal with the ball in his hands. So Tony is my guy. I'll shut up about him now. People are probably sick of me talking about Kadarius Tony. But James asked, when Hardman comes back, don't they play a similar role? Yeah, except Tony's better. So, like, Sky goes away. Justin Watson goes away. And, probably some of the 2 tight end stuff goes away. Jody Fortson goes away. He doesn't need to play. Like, that's the thing is Hardman was kind of low-key smashing. Hardman was kind of low-key smashing on he wasn't playing a whole shit ton of snaps. It was MVS playing every snap, Juju working his way up to the majority of snaps, obviously Kelsey and the tight ends. And it's kind of this weird rotation outside of MVS and Juju at wide receiver. Now you just bring Tony back and he's going to get his, you know what I mean? And he doesn't need to be. So maybe you take a little bit of MVS off, you take a little bit of Juju off. Hardman still gets his whatever, but Hardman just is living off of these, not shovel passes, these rushing touchdowns at the goal line, these kind of trick plays and stuff. He can get a little bit of that, but Tony didn't score on a trick play. Tony was in the backfield, but he didn't score on a trick play, and they can give him the ball too. It's not like, it's not Madden, right? Where like Hardman's back, Hardman is going to take that work at the Z or whatever, like that. It doesn't kind of work that way. I think they traded for Kadarius Tony because they didn't have enough in their current wide receiver core. If he keeps playing well, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, that guy we traded for because we know Hardman's not good enough. Yeah, we're going to keep him on the bench over Hardman. Like, it just doesn't pass the smell test to me. You know what I mean? Will he play 90% of snaps? No, that's not the expectation. But he doesn't need to be. Tyreek Hill didn't play 90% of snaps on the Chiefs and was a stone cold smash. You're just looking for 66, get to 65%. Like, if he can get to, you just need to play on passing downs. I don't give a shit if he blocks for Pacheco when he runs for 2 yards or CEH when he runs for -2 yards. I just get out there, run some routes, baby. Pretty excited about him. I like this. Ricky says, these guys that move different. are just smashing for the most part. That is a excellent kind of way to put it. These, crazy guys with the football in their hands. Garrett Wilson, Kadarius Tony, mentions Ken Walker. I'm trying to think. I mean, obviously Tyreek. Look at what Tyreek is. Tyreek is just a one of one. There is no other Tyreek Hill. And so sometimes in the league winner conversation, particularly, those guys can be league winners more easily than Najee Harris. Sorry, Najee's always the guy that comes to my mind. I apologize, Felix, if you're watching this or if you watch this later. Najee Harris is not a special football player. He's fine. I don't really care to debate exactly how good or bad Najee is. That's pretty played out at this point. But I think everyone agree. I didn't know if you were here. I hadn't seen you in chat, so I thought I could sneak a Najee comment by you. My apologies. What about even like Dalvin? Is Dalvin even like a guy? Like Dalvin's a good running back, but like you're never giving Dalvin the ball, and he does what Ken Walker has done like 4 times already this year. Ken Walker was hurt to start the season. Ken Walker wasn't even playing the first few games. He's got all these crazy. Let's look at running back. Let me undo this and go to running back. If we look at spike weeks, where's Ken Walker? 3 spike weeks, 2 mega spike weeks. So 2 monster performances and 3 big time performances basically for Ken Walker. 6 total usable weeks, 3 dud weeks. And that's partially because the dude, Penny was playing. So the guy has basically been an absolute fantasy monster, particularly when we think about it through the best ball lens of the spike week, usable week, etc. Ken Walker, he's just a dynamic football player. He's in a good situation now too, obviously. But like when you can just do that, I mean, look at this list of all this is sorted by raw number of spike weeks for Derrick Henry, mutant, 1 of 1. Austin Eckler. I mean, say whatever we want about, it's a lot of passing volume related. That dude's a bad dude, mainly in the passing game, but that he's a really good football player. Austin Eckler. Nick Chubb, probably the best pure runner. Derrick Henry, prime Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb were pretty close. Right now, Nick Chubb, probably the best pure runner. Put it in his hands. He's a freak. Ramondre is probably not quite that level of freak, but he's a pretty good football player. CMC, say no more. Superstar. Saquon Barkley, superstar. Then you start to get into Josh Jacobs, a little bit more volume related, but he's looked really good this year. Aaron Jones, freaky athlete, right? Jamal Williams, touchdowns. But then Ken Walker. So like, yes, can you get there as a Josh Jacobs or a Jamal Williams into the type of league winning running back we're talking about, which is these spike weeks and these huge weeks? That's what we want from our league winners at running back, especially, right? The Zach Ertzes of running backs that doesn't move the needle for us. The running backs who are going to go absolutely nuts and have 2 monster weeks and 3 more spike weeks and 6 total usable weeks, Ken Walker does that. Najee just can't do it because he doesn't have God did not gift him with the physical ability. God didn't gift me with the physical ability, to do a lot of things. That's just how it works. Those guys have more outs. Everybody loves to bash the Kyle Pitts thing? What? Kyle Pitts, you idiots. You couldn't see the Falcons weren't going to throw. You couldn't, you were just betting on this Kyle Pitts talent. You're dumb, whatever. The Kyle Pitts dialogue is the most useless argument of all time, because then we come back around to Ken Walker. I know the cost different, whatever. Everybody was shitting all over the Seahawks all summer. Drew Lock and the Seahawks. Oh my God, they're going to be the worst offense in the NFL. Pete Carroll, he spent a 2nd round pick on a running back when he already has Rashad Penny. Everybody's joking about it. That we conveniently throw that shit out the window when people want to dunk on somebody for drafting Kyle Pitts. It's like, oh, you couldn't see it coming with the Falcons? Did you see it coming with the Seahawks? No. So we just draft special football players. I didn't draft much Ken Walker. I'm an idiot. I think that was bad process. I took mostly Rashad Penny. The special football player, like Ken Walker, has the paths to do this. And when you're wrong about the situation, when you're Mark Andrews last year, the market was wrong about Ravens passing volume. It doesn't matter how it played out. The market was wrong about the Ravens passing volume. And so when you're wrong, guess what happens to the special football player? Mark Andrews. Smash. So we spend all summer doing all these projections and all this shit, and that's how you get Brandon Cooks. That's how you get Allen Robinson, the non-special football players. And the special football players, like Ricky says, you have all these outs to smashing. And when we're wrong, most importantly, when the market or whatever is wrong about the Dolphins, the market says, they're going to run. Tua can't throw it to Tyreek. Whatever. Guess what happens when you're wrong? The superstar football player, the one of one, the freak, goes nuts and wins you your league. Ken Walker, when we're all wrong, right? Rashad Penny goes down and we're all wrong about the Seahawks. Ken Walker wins you your league. So, like, you're going to miss. Javonte gets hurt. Kyle Pitts, the Falcons are throwing 6 times a game. They might as well just run why don't they just run the veer? Why don't we just go old school Navy, I used to run the triple option. I would play as Air Force in the old NCAA football games because I loved it. We were in the wing T when I was in high school, but I loved the triple option. It's such a fascinating offense, and we played against some teams that ran the triple option in college too, actually. And it's such a fun offense. So why don't the Falcons like just quit this pistol zone read shit? Let's just go full on veer, old school. Let's get in the wing T. Let's get in the double wing. Let's run some frickin' triple option. Just quit messing around trying to throw it 3 times a game to Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Just fully establish it. They got 3 running backs. Put Caleb Huntley at fullback, C-Pat and Algier at the 2 wings, Mariota at quarterback, Pitts and London outside. Easy game. Just embrace it if we're gonna run it. But you know what I mean? Like, it's easy right now to get confirmation bias about the things that we were right about because we all project the teams and we're all wrong constantly. But when we're right, it's like, yep, we told you. What do you mean you drafted Kyle Pitts? What do you mean you drafted whoever? Right? What do you mean you drafted Rashad Bateman? Don't you know the Ravens aren't going to throw enough to sustain him? But they did last year. And now, and I was supposed to draft Mark Andrews. Explain that one to me. One of my lessons is a lot of what Ricky said with a side of flair, if you will. I team context matters. It absolutely matters. But figuring out how to more appropriately blend the two, I think our overall market has not figured that part out. I'm not saying I definitely haven't, and I'm not saying I will be able to by next summer. But one thing I want to try to do by next summer is be like, okay, people will make it binary. When I'm trying to target league winners, which is really all I'm trying to do, I don't get like the Zach Ertz thing. That's not really for me. I get why people would like it. It's not how I prefer to play. I would rather luck into the Trey McBride than spend the 10th round pick on Zach Ertz. That's just how I prefer this. But how do we project out all these things and figure out who to target from within the context of their offense with their skill? Both of those things we're going to be wrong about a ton. Like, actually, who is awesome? Who are these special players? We didn't really know that Ken Walker was a special player. I mean, he's a 2nd round pick, good dynamic runner in college, but that doesn't always mean he's going to be a good dynamic runner in the NFL. And of course, our our coming in position was that the Seahawks were awful. So how do you blend some of these things together to find the best players to target? And I think this is good. This is definitely a good point. Everyone is like, oh, this guy's, got his hand in the dirt. Like, yes, you have to try and peg dynamic players before everyone understands they are dynamic. And I would also add that it's not even just pegging them before everyone else understands it. It is kind of creating this error bar, if you will. You're creating a range of outcomes. And definitely the offense play, right? Dameon Pierce is a very dynamic player, and that's why he's usable. It's like I want to search for Dameon Pierce because he's an interesting guy here. So Dameon Pierce, perfect example. You see at the top, has had 2 spike weeks. You would think as the RB14 that kind of came out of nowhere, right? Looks really good, looks dynamic. You would get a little bit more upside from him, but he is absolutely hampered by the Texans offense. And so you're getting a lot of these usable weeks. And that's probably because he's dynamic. You're getting a really good football player, RB20 plus. He was going way, way, way cheaper than RB20 for most of the summer. And his skill is propelling him, even in a bad situation, to be usable. But if not appropriately priced, which he kind of got to be inappropriately priced by the end, right? He was probably like one of the best picks in fantasy for most of the summer, and then probably one of the worst by the end. But that's important. That dynamic is important when trying to target these league winners through the lens of this kind of talent and dynamicism. I don't know. We're making up words. The dynamic players. Everyone agrees that matters, but how do we appropriately find them? Right? I would argue it's a little easier than people will say, and it's a little tougher than people will say to identify offenses not at the polar, the two ends of the spectrum. Assuming health to Josh Allen, we know that the Bills are going to be an elite offense. We know that the Chiefs are going to be an elite offense. I'm trying to think of any other ones. We kind of knew what we were getting from the Bengals, which is like borderline elite offense, but like going to have some elite weeks just because of how good those football players are. We know those, right? And we knew the Texans were bad. Period. Like, full stop. There were reasons for probably almost every other offense in the outside of I'm missing some guys for sure, but I'm missing some teams. In the middle is like the Dolphins could have been run heavy and not so good. It's possible. There was a percentage chance that, right, within a range of outcomes, that was in the range of outcomes. But also this league winning offense was in the range as well. And so I think that kind of outside of those two crazy ends of the spectrum, focusing in on that dynamic player is probably our best bet. Now we're going to miss on those, just like we're going to miss on offenses. But I think that there's more payoff in finding the Ken Walkers than there is payoff in being right about the Vikings being a great offense. You know what I mean? Like, so you were right that the Falcons are not a great offense. Like, what did you win? Nothing. I mean, you faded Kyle Pitts. Okay. What did you like? If you then apply that same logic elsewhere and you say, well, I also think the Seahawks are going to suck, and I also think that the Jets are going to suck and the Jaguars are going to suck, right? Because it's probably what you're doing. If you're saying all those same things, if you're applying the same principles, again, I'm generalizing, but if you're applying the same principles across the board, how do you find that's all that shit's priced in. How do you find league winners? Right? Like that's what we're talking about here today. How the hell do we find these league winners? I think it's interesting. Anyway, rambled on about that a lot. Let's talk about some of these other guys. Let's talk about Justin Fields. Actually, let's talk about shout out to you, Jack. Thank you for subscribing. Give us a like. Appreciate the feedback. Only Blur says, I drafted quite a bit of Erik Beimfohr, 4th round rookie from the Dolphins, by the way. In the summer, he was projected to be the 4th wide receiver behind Cedric Wilson, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill. He hasn't suited up yet, but he's on the 53. Yeah, Sherfield kind of ruined Beimfohr because he could have been possibly a thing with when Wilson was out, but they went to the veteran. You know how. I mean, look at the running backs that Mike McDaniel has brought in. Mostert and Jeff Wilson, and then he's found his new Kyle Juszczyk, and then Trent he was like, I need a 3rd wide receiver while Wilson's out. Yep, sure, Trent Sherfield, my old buddy. So that's just kind of an unfortunate part of the 49ers experience, the 49ers system, the Mike McDaniel experience. I'm sorry, I'm going to make sure I hit some of these questions. What role do you think Ken Walker has if Penny is healthy? Yeah, he's the 1B. I think that was sort of proven. Now that could change over the course, but this is actually kind of a great point. I think Penny and Walker were both awesome picks. Awesome picks. There's an alternate universe where Walker went down and Penny goes nuts. Or there's an alternate universe where Penny was the 1A when Walker had come back. It's easy to say now after we see Ken Walker having a great season, but Rashad Penny is an awesome running back too. We saw what he did last year, and he had good weeks this year too. Let me I can pull him up really quick. If I look at Penny, before getting hurt, Penny had one monster game, another spike week, and a usable week. Now he has kind of had the additional duds, but he had monster games because he's really good at the game too. He's really dynamic. He's a really good football player, and he was getting the volume in that offense. I think sometimes, again, it's not apples to apples, but like the Ertz thing, it doesn't have to be this was right and this was wrong. I think both sides of the Ertz thing can be right. Both sides can be wrong. Both sides of this, meaning Penny or Walker, I think they were both right. If you what I wish I would have done is split it up more. I focused in on Penny, mostly a risk tolerance and a personal preference thing. I wish a lesson learned for me is I think that they were both good picks, and I should have spread it out more. But like they can both be right, and then the outcome plays out in such a way that we think only one of them was right. Right? Walker was always the league winner. But that's not true. Penny could have been. Look at this. Penny was putting up league-winning type production before he got hurt, multiple big games. But then he gets hurt, and that's what creates what, right? But the opposite could be true too. Penny could be smashing right now if that's what Penny did last year. Penny smashed when Chris Carson was out. So I think both. Is kind of like that can be the answer. Yeah, I need to double check. Jake asks, are the dud weeks when he plays, or is that from injury? I need to double check and make sure what we got going in the dud weeks. I don't believe it's supposed to include injuries, but I do want to double check that. Yeah, I want to double check that. There we go. Hughes, he only played 5 weeks, so I'm guessing that it's counting a couple of the dud weeks in there. I think if you're on the highest price guy in a backfield and you like the talent of the backups, you should make sure you get to them too, just as like a personal guide. I think that's totally fair. I think that's absolutely, completely, totally fair. Okay, let's talk about, we talked for 55 minutes, and let's actually get to one of the big monster. We did talk about Ken Walker, who's definitely a league winner, but he's easy, right? Those guys are easy. It's like Ken Walker, pretty good league winner. And you're getting top 5 running back production from a mid-round pick. That makes sense. So Justin Fields, though, fascinating, what I would call league winner. I feel confident. I feel confident in Ken Walker being called a league winner. If he gets hurt here down the stretch, it is what it is. Kind of same thing with Justin Fields, but I feel pretty good about Justin Fields also as a league winner. Again, you see here he's had multiple monster games. Some of the stuff that this dude has been doing is absolutely insane. I'm going to try to go really quickly pull up some tweets I put in on Justin Fields. And it's, if you haven't seen kind of what he's doing here over the course of the last, over the course of the last 5 weeks, here we go. This run Justin Fields is on is insane. This is actually the crazy part. In the first 5 weeks, the people who are anti-young player, young breakout, right? The people like the idiots like me who draft Justin Fields and Trey Lance and Kyle Pitts and Rashad Bateman and Drake London and Garrett Wilson, right? And Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, the idiots like us and Javonte Williams, the idiots who draft those guys, and they say, you can't. Aren't you worried? Aren't you worried about Melvin Gordon? We don't even need to talk about, aren't you worried about Melvin Gordon takes from Javonte anymore? Aren't you worried about the Falcons passing game? Aren't you worried about the Seahawks offense? Aren't you worried about the Bears offense? Yes, of course. We're worried about all of that. And it came true for Justin Fields in the first 5 weeks. He was a QB 24. He had less than 200 total rushing yards, which is still good for a quarterback. But he was scoring less than 12 fantasy points per game in the first 5 weeks. And everybody's like, Trey Lance had gotten hurt. Kyle Pitts is dust. Justin Fields isn't doing anything. Javonte had gotten hurt. It's like, you are all idiots. Told you. We told you. And then, dynamic player figures it out, and his team starts to figure it out, and maybe his matchups get a little bit better. Week 6 to 10, Justin Fields, 555 rushing yards, 30.6 fantasy points per game, the QB1, more than Josh Allen, more than Patrick Mahomes, all those guys. For some additional context, he has never thrown more than 28 passes in a game this year. He is 6th in the entire NFL in rushing yards, 749. He is behind just 5 running backs: Saquon, the big dog, Chubb, Josh Jacobs, and Dameon Pierce. So yes, that means he's ahead of JT and CMC and Najee and Eckler and Mixon and on down the list, Kamara, everybody. He's ahead of all those guys in rushing yards. His 6 rushing touchdowns. That's also only behind Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Jamal Williams, Josh Jacobs, and Ken Walker. He's an absolute, complete, and utter smash. And it's because he's a dynamic football player. Why do we target these rushing quarterbacks? Why is the Trey Lance joke so ongoing? If you are watching what Justin Fields is doing right now, and you can't comprehend why people drafted Trey Lance, what the fuck is going on in your brain? This is it. This is it. Oh, give me Tom Brady. How safe is Tom? Give me Matthew Stafford. Give me those guys. I'm not drafting that shitty young quarterback. Here's why you do it. League winners. I want league. Matthew Stafford could not win you the league. He could possibly not hurt you. He was a small win massive loss player. You drafted Matthew Stafford, your team is donezo. Unless maybe you drafted Justin Fields with him, and Justin Fields came to the rescue of your safe Matthew Stafford pick or your safe Tom Brady pick. Derek Carr, all those guys, trash for fantasy. And this outcome for Justin Fields is specifically why you target these kinds of players. Did I know that Justin Fields? Hell no. I probably made as many jokes about the Bears, right? Velus Jones is older than me, and they're playing a bunch of castaways at wide receiver. They're lost, they're clueless, they're idiots. We all said it. It is what it is. But why do you ignore all that and you still take Justin Fields? It's because this archetype of a player can be a league winner. Matthew Stafford cannot. It doesn't matter. The results don't matter. It's hard to put that out of your brain of being like, when Trey Lance misses, you're like, he was bad process. You're an idiot. That was bad process. But the same process is how you get on Justin Fields. The same one. When you fade Javonte, idiots faded, you dummies, you drafted Javonte Williams. The same process puts you on Breece Hall and Travis Etienne. The same process. And so people want the right or wrong about individual players. Like, how did you land on that league winner? Well, what was your take on him? My take was he's a young top 10 pick quarterback who runs a 4.3 40. He's a freak, like he has upside. Do I know if it'll come true? Am I excited about the Bears? Fuck no. But does that matter? No. And he's proving why it doesn't matter. Do I think Justin Fields is going to sustain exactly what he's doing right here? Of course not. Yes. Am I worried about the first 2 weeks of the playoffs against the Eagles and the Bills? Yes, of course. Aren't you worried? Yes, always. Always worried. I worry about everything. Was I worried about Melvin? Yes. Was I worried about the Falcons passing rate? Yes. Was I worried about Tyreek, Tua throwing a bunch of ducks to him? Yes. All of it. Always worried about it, but it doesn't matter because we're trying to find these league winners, and you find league winners when the stuff that everybody else is worried about doesn't happen. We're worried about the Bears. It doesn't matter. And if you can get this there, this is awesome. If you can get this, you want to talk about 2 league winners. If you can weather the storm through weeks 15 and 16, let me pull up the playoff schedule really quick. If you can weather the storm through weeks 15 and 16 with the Bears and the Lions. Here's our cheat sheet here. The Lions get the Jets, so not an awesome matchup. Get the Panthers, that's a fine matchup. God, the Panthers. What a shit show, by the way. Like, they have all this talent on defense. How are they getting shredded all the time? Anyway, Jets, pretty good defense. Panthers, whatever, fine matchup. So Amon-Ra got a pretty nice little shot here, given the target share our boy has now, of being a quote unquote league winner. And if you can get, this Bears, your Justin Fields stacks through Philly and Buffalo to play against Amon-Ra in the championship, you're sitting in the BBM3 finals with Fields, Kmet, and Amon-Ra. You're feeling pretty good. I did want to mention, also speaking of the Bears, you guys called out. Thank you. I didn't miss it. Khalil Herbert on IR, just went on IR. He'll miss the next 4 games, and so he will also miss the first round of the playoffs. I mean, that's really big for David Montgomery. That pains me because you guys know me well enough at this point to know I ain't drafting much David Montgomery, even though he was on that one big board team. Let's see if I drafted him in BBM. I don't know if I have any David Montgomery in Best Ball Mania 3. So we'll look at my. Nope, 0. Nope. I don't have a DMOT Best Ball Mania 3 team. So, it's really funny. The world has come full circle, making fun of David Montgomery because he kind of luck boxed being a league winner last year. Was that last year? He really luck boxed. Excuse me. He really luck boxed being a league winner last year. Let me go to DraftKings. We'll just do the Millie because I definitely didn't draft him in anything. Nope. That's so funny. I don't have any David Montgomery, and but you can see my 19% advance rate in the DraftKings Millie right now, 24% within. Is this sorted by points? Yeah, sorted by points. So my high scoring team here is a Fields team. Shocker. DeAndre Swift, actually. And of course, the aforementioned Khalil Herbert. But I mean, David Montgomery, right? These kinds of guys that kind of come out of nowhere are the most fascinating league winners to me. Like, look, Justin Fields is a league winner. Kenneth Walker is a league winner. I'm sure I'm missing. Frankly, Travis Kelce might be. These guys, Tyreek definitely a league winner. Those guys are not. It's not super profound, and the ownership of those guys in the playoffs is going to reflect the fact that they are the clear and obvious league winners. Stone Cold smashes. Josh Jacobs continuing along that path. I'm sure. I'm missing the very, very obvious league winners. But the most fascinating ones, especially for us being best ball focused, right? The Ken Walker is the most important guy if you're just caring about your 12-team home league, right? Just give me Fields, Walker, Travis Kelce, Tyreek on my home league team, and who gives a shit about the rest? I don't care about Kadarius Tony in that. I don't care about David Montgomery in that. But these guys who haven't necessarily been awesome and then come on, right? Eno, that crazy Eno example we talked about earlier, has some good weeks to help you out, then goes to the Texans. And now maybe he's going to go split some work with Dameon Pierce, right? These guys, David Montgomery comes on and now he's back to a workhorse. This is what happened last year with David Montgomery. I think I agree. Tristan Ebner will play some, but it's going to be David Montgomery's general backfield. So these guys, Tony, Montgomery, Eno, Trey McBride, I think Chase Claypool is super interesting to kind of go along with like Jonathan saying, seeing Fields play so well with the Bears losing is the dream for the Bears fans. And maybe we'll get a little Claypool action going here. Your Claypool teams are probably feeling totally dead. Maybe he comes alive. Those are the guys that are all the most kind of interesting to me from when we're talking about league winners. We kind of talked obviously a lot about it turned into how the hell do we find these league winners and all that kind of stuff. But we'll continue to talk every week on this, on Tuesdays. And I'm fascinated to continue to see if we just keep seeing Tony's role grow. I mean, the guy has 9 weeks of literally zero production. And if you can sneak him in to the playoffs, that's the dream, dude. That's the dream. That's the wide receiver Rashad Penny. That's what we want. That's what we want. Amon-Ra. He'll just be Amon-Ra. That's what we put Amon-Ra on the freaking Chiefs. That's what is in the range of outcomes for what you might have for Kadarius Tony. Double-digit targets with low ownership in the playoffs, but on the Chiefs. I know it's not like it would have mattered because Amon-Ra was just such a smash regardless. But that's what I want to kind of continue to talk through moving forward. This will not be the last league winners conversation we have here, but those kinds of guys that kind of continue to pop up, right? A lot of it's by their teammates getting hurt, getting cut and signed by the Texans, whatever. The Keontae Ingram could be. Keontae Ingram, shout out Silas, who works for Spike Week, writes for Spike Week, was big on Keontae Ingram. Think about Keontae Ingram as a low-key, right? James Conner is going to make it from now until week 17 without getting hurt? Doubtful. And they were willing to go with Keontae over Eno. That's why Eno's gone. So like what happens when James Conner goes down again and Keontae steps in? There's your random league winner on a guy who did nothing all year. Those kinds of guys. Super duper fascinating to me. I thought, 100%. This is a perfect way to wrap it up. Why all this is so important, why we're talking about these random players is Cool on 2K says, if you play DFS, you need guys who are slate breakers. And that's what the championship of best ball is. Even the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, it's like playing in the Thunderdome, playing in a very small tournament where you still need upside. And then you get to week 17, like literally everything is upside in week 17 and as much low-owned upside as you can get. So why are we talking about Kadarius Tony and Keontae Ingram and Trey McBride is because those are the guys that win you the tournaments. Getting Justin Fields there and Amon-Ra there, yes, I please God, let me get one of those teams. I want it too. But you're not sneaking by your Justin Fields, Ken Walker, and Amon-Ra team, right? It's going to be duplicated. Other people are going to have that. You sneak it in with Kadarius Tony and Trey McBride and Keontae Ingram with James Conner out, right? And that kind of stuff. They play the Falcons, by the way. That would be sweet. You sneak Kyle Pitts in. You sneak these guys, these dynamic players with real upside that can break a slate. Sneaking in AJ Green doesn't get you anywhere. You want the guys that can come and win you the week. And how do we get those guys? I'm not sitting here trying to say, oh, this is going to tell us how to find Kadarius Tony next year, the guy who gets traded, to the Chiefs. But thinking through how everything is kind of unfolding as it goes, I feel like we can figure out some lessons, and it all kind of goes back to this: is we want to get to week 17 and we want to have guys who can break the slate, because that's how we win. Because everybody's going to have all the good players. When you get to week 17, how many Ken Walker teams are going to be there? A lot, even if he doesn't awesome in the playoffs, because he's winning everyone their leagues, right? People are going to have those guys. So how do we win? It's these other guys like Jeff Wilson. There you go. Good one. Jeff Wilson. A fun one. I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate you guys. As always, we're going to continue to do this on Tuesdays, kind of talking through these different things, right? League winners, maybe some playoff. Next week, we'll talk about some playoff matchups. We'll talk about some different things that are leading us in to the playoffs. And then we can absolutely tilt our faces off when we get to week 15, 16, and 17, when all our teams die. Hopefully they don't die. But shout out Neil. Totally agree. What a bust. And I will see you guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Rob and I will be back tomorrow. But for this show, I'll see you guys next week. Keep bringing those teams. You can reply on my tweet on Twitter, or you can go into the Discord, drop your teams in there. We're constantly reviewing teams, myself and others, providing some feedback on teams. A lot of fun. Anyway.